Thanks for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Hello everyone, welcome to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. My name is Steven Jodaran. Joining me, as always, are Micah Fye. On today's episode, we sit down with latest signee for USL League One's Forward Madison FC, Carl Schneider. Don't forget to follow us on the Twitter machine at Uncle Sam's Soccer Pod. We always enjoy your feedback and commentary, so please continue to send it in. Don't forget that you can find the show on any major podcast platform. Leave that 5-star review and hit that subscribe button. Now let's get to today's episode. Joining us right now is the latest signee for USL League One's Madison forward, Carl Schneider. Carl, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. I'm a little sore on this Saturday morning. It's been a long week of training, but I'm getting ready for preseason, so it's necessary.
Absolutely, Carl. You've had a really interesting journey in the world of soccer. I mean, reading through your story, we'll link them in the description. As a Madison native, you played to high school, college, and now you're playing professionally for your hometown. I mean, when we think of Wisconsin, though, we think more of football than we do soccer. So how was it, growing up in Wisconsin and playing soccer?
It's funny. I remember being in third grade or, sometime in elementary school when all my friends were quitting soccer and starting to play football. And I actually took a lot of crap from them for playing soccer, the whole field fairy thing. But I was like, you know what, I'm pretty good at this, so I'm going to keep going with it. And I don't care what you guys say.
Carl, but what was the most difficult aspect overcoming your youth development in Wisconsin?
I think it's safe to say that Wisconsin is not exactly a hotbed for soccer. So going from high school to college, I wanted to get recruited to a good program. And, I was playing for the 56ers club. There's no academy through 56ers. So right there is kind of a red flag for some college coaches. So I kind of had to do it the old-fashioned way. I went to the UW summer camp and got recognized there. And then, some of the years at Wisconsin, we didn't have great records. So coming out of college, I probably wasn't a super attractive prospect in that sense either. So really, it's just been getting in front of people's eyes and showing them what I can do.
And, as you probably know, Carl, there's this overall debate, between, is development for players, is it the best route to go to college or is it the best route to turn professionally early? Can you just speak about, your overall college experience at Madison and how it contributed to your overall game and the player that you are today?
Well, I think the biggest strength I got from it are in the physical sense. I was in the weight room. I put on muscle. Between high school and college, my fitness grew tenfold. And then Coach Trask at UW is a real stickler about pressuring the ball, going 100%. And that's kind of just college soccer in general, because there's the unlimited subs. So you can go 100% for as long as you can and then get subbed out. But when I went to Europe, I think it was pretty noticeable how quickly I was shutting the ball down compared to some of my teammates who were a little slower on the field, good footwork and everything, but a lack of intensity on defense.
Just generally speaking, do you think the college game right now is in a situation where it can continue to produce players to feed into any of the professional leagues here in America? Or are we seeing a transition where the college game is slowly getting phased out?
Well, I guess I'll just say I do love college soccer. I love following it and I loved playing it. That being said, you look at the guys that get drafted in the MLS draft that are from college. And unfortunately, I'd say 80% of them stick around for a year or two, and then they don't get their player options picked up. So, and there's guys coming from Central America that grew up playing the game and have just put in way more practice hours than the college guys who are mixing in school and everything. And I think that's attractive to pro teams. So I think we are in a bit of a transition. I know there's been talk about making the college season year round. I think that could help. But I did have a coach tell me once that where you're at as a player comes down to like before what happened before college. It's the time you put in before that. So I think as it is right now, it's still possible for a college player to succeed. They just have to put in tons of hours, maybe even before college.
Absolutely, Carl. And the one thing about your story that really popped out to at least me was after college, you ended up in the Swedish 6th division. How the hell did that happen?
Well, there's a program in Chicago called Bridges, or Bridges to the Pros, I guess would be the full name. They train guys all summer. It's usually guys fresh out of college who didn't get picked up by any American teams. Train all summer. They take you over to Europe. So when we went, we were in Denmark and Sweden. They get you in front of European clubs, and if those teams like you, they can sign you. For me, we actually didn't play the club that I ended up at, but just through a mutual connection, I got this coach's information, headed out to Ulmo and tried out, and they liked me, and I spent the next 3 seasons there.
Talk about that experience in Sweden, how that's brought you back to Madison. How did that affect you?
Well, I always tell people it wasn't much of a culture shock. Everyone in Sweden speaks English, so I think for me it was a pretty easy transition from the U.S. to Sweden. Playing wise, the level maybe wasn't as high as I wanted it to be, but I really learned how to push myself. Because I'd go to practice sometimes and I would feel like I didn't get the workout that I needed. So, I'd wake up early the next morning and go to the gym and push myself, or after training, I would do extra running. And, the team, I thought the club was very committed to producing good soccer. They just didn't have the resources that would really make it a seemingly professional club. So then when I heard that this team in Madison was starting up, I'd been 3 years in Sweden. I really missed Madison. Like, it's tough. It's tough when you wake up at 7 in the morning in Sweden and you send out a bunch of texts to your friends back home, and they're not going to read them for still 8 hours. So it was the chance to be back in the U.S. presented itself, and I had to jump all over that. I loved my time in Sweden, but I want to play at the highest level possible. And I think this Madison team is going to be a much higher level than my Swedish team.
I got to ask you, you didn't miss the weather here in Madison and Sweden?
Oh, man. I will say the weather in Madison primed me well for Sweden because it's pretty similar. Although the past summer in Sweden was actually the warmest summer they've had in history. So it was beautiful. And now I'm in Madison, and we just had the polar vortex, and I know it's not that bad in Sweden. So I don't know. I think Sweden, I guess, has better weather, which is crazy because if you look at a map, Sweden is way further north than us.
Yeah, no, it's incredible to have such cold temperatures. But for the upcoming season, how's preparation working? How's the preseason? How's the team dynamic coming along as a new club, a new league in American soccer landscape?
It's coming along. We got the preseason pretty much nailed down. We're going to be scrimmaging some USL teams around the Midwest. We're heading down to Rockford for a week to get indoors at the Sports Score turf. Next week we got fitness testing at the end of the week. That'll kind of kick things off. As far as being a new club, there's still some things that they're trying to nail down, like player housing. They're really pushing the season tickets. I think everyone's pretty optimistic that we'll be selling out Brees Stevens. So I think it's coming along really well. And Peter Wilt and everyone has a lot of experience starting new clubs. So we're all pretty confident that it's all going to work out for the best.
I know it's kind of early because, even the USL League One season hasn't even started yet. Just from, your overall just first impressions, do you think this could be a new avenue for some collegiate players to go maybe if they don't get drafted by an MLS team, they can go to a USL League One side instead of, having to go to the 6th division of Sweden or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an attractive place to end up for a college player because before League One, if you didn't get picked up by a USL team, your choices were then playing PDL. That would be the highest level you could play, although it's not professional. So you probably wouldn't be getting paid, and you'd just be banking on a USL team noticing you playing in the PDL. Or you could go to another country and probably get picked up by a lower league team. Obviously, that's a pretty big life decision and adjustment. So I think League One can kind of thread the needle between, playing semi-pro in the PDL and playing professional, but 5,000 miles from home.
Where do you expect to see yourself in the next several seasons and next several years? What can we expect from Carl Schneider?
I don't have my sights set too far down the road right now. I really am more interested to see how I stack up to the team this year. I don't know if I would expect to be kind of a role player, kind of a gritty defender who just locks down the right side. But I think getting in with all these professional players will benefit me a lot. I'm going to try to learn from them, and I think it's really going to up my game. And, I'm 26, so I'm kind of right in the sweet spot of like a player's prime. And if in a couple of years I'm getting looks from like Minnesota United, obviously that would be incredible for me. And I'm definitely willing to let the career go as long as the body holds up.
Absolutely, Colin. I got to ask you one final question. What do you think of the Flamingo or the Mingo? We saw, it took over social media with the, seeing how much snow was coming up. What do you think of it?
I love the whole flamingo thing. I think it's super unique. I don't think there's any other clubs with flamingos as the logo. I love the color scheme. I'm really glad we don't just have like plain white jerseys. And I got to hand it to the whole social media team. They're killing it. You look at the comments like under their posts about the Mingo, and half the people that respond, they're getting responses back from the club. So that's a great way to get people involved and feel like they're a part of the club. So I love all of it.
No doubt, Carl. Well, we look forward to seeing League One develop as well as your personal playing time. And thanks for joining us here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
There you have it. Carl Schneider of USL League's One, Forward Madison. Now, Armand, League One, this is going to be an interesting little league to pay attention to as they're getting 2 more teams in the coming years. I'm assuming it's only going to grow. You and I both actually are sitting in a market with a team. However, you do have an MLS club as well in their backyard. So a lot of these cities are starting to see multiple clubs. I wonder how this is going to affect U.S. soccer.
I'm interested at a couple things. First off is the level of play. I want to see what level USL League One is, because I mean there could be a really interesting point is if it's too low of a level, do you really want some of your players developing there? We're not sure. We're not sure what the level of play is going to be like. I'm interested to see that relative to MLS for those academy players to develop. Number two, I'm also interested to see how those markets without MLS teams act. I mean, we have Forward Madison, really, first off, unique branding, great build up by Peter Wilt, who we've had on the show and who knows how to build a club from his MLS experience. Mm-hmm. I'm interested to see how those teams do. I think South Georgia Tormenta is another team. A lot of these teams, they don't have MLS that much MLS around them. I want to see how they develop. And overall, the league is interesting because it gives MLS teams flexibility on how academy players can get called up to the team. That's why FC Dallas specifically went League One over USL Championship, because of the flexibility. I want to see if other MLS teams notice this, see if the competition's good, and are like, hey, we're going to move down some. And maybe you won't see some teams in USL Championship with MLS-based teams, but they all might move to League One.
Yeah, so you have Chattanooga Red Bulls, FC Tucson, Forward Madison, Greenville Triumph, Lansing Ignite, North Texas, Orlando City, Richmond Kickers, South Georgia Tormenta, and Toronto FC. And then expansion teams. Armand spoke about this club on the show before. Do you know who will be an expansion team in the coming seasons?
I've definitely read about it, but I don't know.
Rochester Rhinos.
Oh, I like that. I don't know if they're going to play in their stadium, though. I mean, the story of the Rochester Rhinos is honestly one of the saddest stories in probably U.S. soccer that you can think of. But USL League One, if they do this the right way, if they expand at the right rate, they can, and their level of play is really good, it should be attractive for collegiate players. It's their avenue for potential collegiate players to go to if they get drafted into MLS, which, I mean, it's the draft is losing so much significance. We don't even see that many players getting drafted. But I'm interested, man. I don't know, Steven, with what Forward Madison's been doing, they really feel like a grassroots club. If that mean you're in Madison, so you have better perspective than I do. But I feel like it's so grassroots. The freaking Flamingo, I love it. I love the Flamingo. I love that they're renovating an old stadium into something into their stadium. I love their plans of having 1,000 people in the supporters section. I love their colors. I just love it. I don't know. I love it. My favorite I guess it's my favorite USL League One team. Their branding and stuff.
There you go. Armand, before we talk about Madison's PR and their fantastic social media marketing, did want to mention Rochester plans to start 2020. You got Penn FC as another expansion team, and then just an interesting way to look at the dynamic of the league is you have Orlando City, Toronto, and Dallas, who really are sharing their backyard with an MLS team. So wonder how that dynamic feeds into the league and what type of atmospheres and discussion we have about these clubs with MLS teams and non-MLS marketed teams, geographically speaking. The Tormenta are 3 hours away from Atlanta, so share the same state but completely different locations. So 3 hours is quite a drive. But Armand, I mean, you do say something very interesting, is that you love the way Forward Madison has branded itself. It has its own personality. You see its grassroots. Do you think this is the model going forward for the expansion franchises going into even MLS? Say with what maybe something like what Miami's doing or whatever other markets. Austin seems to have that grassroots feel somewhat, speaking with Josh Babeski and just talking about Austin's soccer market.
Yes, and I think that's the way you have to grow, I think, in this day and age. And it's really easy, too, to connect with people because you have social media. You connect with them on Twitter, on Facebook. You connect with them by getting involved in your community. I'm sure Forward Madison has done something, at least at Wisconsin. I mean, with the signing of Carl, you're getting a guy who's a homegrown, basically, to your team. That helps as well. Establishing a good relationship with the Badgers, that's going to be huge. I think grassroots has to be the way to go, and I'm interested to see how other MLS teams do it. For example, will Austin FC, reach out and work with University of Texas, maybe their women's team because they don't have a men's team. Will a team like Miami, go and connect with that Cuban population there, and attempt to form some sort of relationship? I think it's really important. But I'm genuinely impressed by Madison because we don't really consider Wisconsin. I mean, at least I don't, a soccer market. I do not. When I think of Wisconsin, I think of Green Bay Packers. I think of Lambeau Field. So to see this, it encourages me for the growth of soccer in America because, plain and simple, if you can get it to work in Madison or any other town that we don't really perceive as soccer heavy, then why couldn't it work anywhere?
No, I think that's an excellent point. Now, what about North Texas Soccer Club? You are in Dallas. You cover FC Dallas. What's the discussion around North Texas Soccer Club?
Well, it's a different in ideologies. You have Forward Madison being the only professional club in the area. You have North Texas SC, which is specifically made to be a developmental program for players that are academy, homegrown, maybe some players that were drafted to get playing time there and then work their way up. With North Texas SC, it's going to be such an interesting dynamic between other teams is because you might have a raucous atmosphere at Forward Madison. Look, with North Texas SC, you can't really expect that. I mean, their first 3-4 preseason games are actually double headers with the first team. I think that's the right way to go. I mean, some people will show up with cheaper tickets, or if tickets aren't included for season ticket holders, so it would be free. But overall, I'm not sure if you're expecting an amazing atmosphere at a game like North Texas SC. It's just two completely different ideologies. It's not like we're talking about, like two MLS teams. You have one team specifically saying, hey, we want to develop players and we want this route because we see how Red Bulls and, RSL have done it. And, SKC, they've used those USL teams to develop players to, work their way up. But with North Texas SC and what you've seen at those games, I don't know if you ever watched any of those games, Steven. With those teams, the atmosphere isn't there because because it's not the best product there. The best product there is FC Dallas. The best product in Madison
we know
is
the
Forward
turnout,
Madison.
We know the turnout for FC Dallas is very, very high. People
You got to throw it in there, yeah.
really love to go to FC Dallas games. So that's a detriment to North.
But I would like to add they if they do what they're planning to do, which is play at some other college venues, that could be really interesting. Playing in actual Dallas, if they play at SMU or going to Fort Worth and playing at TCU, that could be a very interesting dynamic between the trying to pull in some people. But if they just play at empty Toyota Stadium, the atmosphere is going to suck. Hopefully not, but it's going to be so different, I think, for some of these guys, going to a team where they're the only professional team there to a team where they're not the best product there. So why should people show up? It's basic, competition.
No, you're right. And I mean, don't forget, Madison is the affiliate for Minnesota United. So the question is, how will Minnesota United use Forward to their advantage in sending players and recalling them and allowing that? So it's going to be a fun league to pay attention to. You got some interesting teams.
I want a jersey. Forward Madison, when you get a jersey, I want it. I want to rock it. I want to rock it. I want to rock that glorious Mingo. Get me and Steven a jersey. I think is that what we're going for right now?
Yeah, that's definitely what we want. There you go. League One is going to be an exciting league. I think it's smaller, so you'll see a lot more familiarity with the clubs and their styles and the players. So the question is, can there be a natural rivalry that brews up within this league? And I think that's one thing that will be really interesting to pay attention to, because you need rivalries across sports, because you need fans to get pulled in, but you also want players to kind of dislike each other on the field. You need a little go in harder for a tackle, or you go in to be a little bit more physical because you just dislike the team. Once the game's over, the game's over. But we'll see. Well, listeners, follow us on Twitter, Uncle Sam Soccer Pod, at Armancafai, at Steven Jodrand. Give us your thoughts. USL League One. We excited? If you are in the market for USL League One, what are you expecting from that club? And especially those who are sharing geographically with an MLS club. How do you think that's going to affect both clubs. Good, bad, neutral. Let us hear it. Uncle Sam Soccer Pod. Leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back later.